He was a charismatic motivational speaker, she an aspiring photographer. Their whirlwind romance spiraled into a deadly obsession. In a case that captivated the nation, Jodi Arias stood trial for the brutal murder of her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander. This is the chilling tale of love, betrayal, and a crime that shocked America.
Travis Alexander was the kind of man people admired, charismatic, driven, and deeply committed to his faith. He had built a promising career as a motivational speaker and sales executive, with big dreams and the energy to match. Born in Riverside, California, Travis overcame a rough childhood filled with poverty and instability. He found purpose in his faith and his work, building a life defined by ambition and optimism. In September 2006, everything changed when Travis met a woman named Jodi Arias. They crossed paths at a prepaid legal conference in Las Vegas, where sparks flew almost instantly. Jodi, a young photographer from Eureka, California, was striking and self-assured. She was drawn to Travis's charm and confidence, and he, in turn, was intrigued by her attention. Their connection was fast and intense. Within weeks, they were talking daily. Within months, they were in a long-distance relationship, despite living in separate states. Jodi converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints just weeks after meeting Travis. It was seen as a commitment not only to faith, but to him. By late 2006, the relationship became serious. Friends, however, began to express concern. They saw red flags, emotional highs and lows, and reports of Jodi's controlling behavior. Some of Travis's close friends warned him that Jodi was dangerous and unstable. He would later tell one friend, "She's stalking me," but he still kept her close. Their bond was complicated. While Travis wanted a future aligned with his faith, the couple's relationship turned sexual, something that conflicted with his spiritual beliefs. They broke up in mid-2007, but it didn't end there. They continued a sexual relationship, even while Travis tried to date others and move on with his life. Jodi moved to Mesa, Arizona, shortly after the breakup, living only minutes from Travis's home. She claimed the move was for work, but friends believed otherwise. According to Travis's circle, Jodi would show up unannounced at his home, sneak into his house through the doggy door, and monitor his activities on social media. Travis started to distance himself more deliberately. He began dating again, building new relationships, and planning a trip to Cancun with another woman. But Jodi didn't take rejection lightly. Her messages became more frequent, then more desperate. She was still obsessed with him, even as he tried to cut ties. In early 2008, Travis confided in friends that he feared Jodi might hurt him. He described her behavior as emotionally manipulative and unpredictable. Despite those fears, Travis maintained contact. Some say it was out of guilt. Others believe he was afraid of what might happen if he pushed her too far. Jodi, meanwhile, was keeping close tabs on his life. She hacked into his social media, read his private messages, and kept extensive journals of their interactions. To outsiders, it looked like Travis was moving on. But behind the scenes, Jodi was planning a visit that no one expected, and Travis would never survive. On May 28, 2008, Jodi rented a car in Redding, California. She packed a .25 caliber gun, a camera, and a gas can, and started driving south. She told no one she was going to Arizona. Her alibi was built for secrecy. What she didn't know was that a single camera left behind would change everything. Jodi's journey had one destination: Travis Alexander's home. It was the beginning of the end. It was June 4th, 2008. Travis Alexander had a few days before his long-anticipated trip to Cancun. He was preparing to go with a woman he had recently begun dating, someone Jodi Arias knew about. That morning, Jodi showed up at Travis's house in Mesa, Arizona. She had driven over 1,000 miles, mostly overnight, avoiding toll roads, using gas cans to avoid being tracked. She brought with her a digital camera, 2 changes of clothes, and a gun, a .25 caliber pistol reported stolen from her grandparents' house just days earlier. Inside the house, Travis welcomed her, at least for a while. Photos recovered later show the two of them in intimate settings that morning. Those photos told investigators a silent story. They were time-stamped, showing the pair in the bedroom, then in the shower, all within a span of a few hours. Then the tone of the photos changed. The final shots showed Travis in the shower, vulnerable, unaware, and looking straight at the lens. Minutes later, a photo caught his bloodied body slumped on the bathroom floor. Travis had been stabbed 27 times. His throat was cut from ear to ear. He had also been shot in the head. It was a brutal, overkill act. Jodi fled the scene, taking the memory card from the camera and attempting to destroy it. She put the camera in Travis's washing machine and ran it. She then embarked on a calculated journey to create an alibi, meeting a friend in Utah for a pre-planned visit, behaving normally, even flirtatiously. Meanwhile, no one had heard from Travis. After 2 days of silence, friends went to his home. They found a horrific scene: blood on the walls, in the hallway, and the body of their friend in the shower. Police launched a full investigation. They discovered the broken camera, recovered the memory card, and unlocked the timeline. Jodi Arias was questioned by police on June 9th. She denied being in Arizona and said she hadn't seen Travis in weeks, but investigators already had the photo evidence. They also had gas receipts, cell tower pings, and surveillance footage, all contradicting her story. Faced with the mounting proof, Jodi changed her story. She claimed 2 masked intruders had broken in and killed Travis while sparing her life. That story, too, fell apart. There were no signs of forced entry, no forensic evidence of a second person, and no 911 call made from the house. Eventually, Jodi confessed, but not to murder. She claimed she had killed Travis in self-defense, alleging years of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Her mugshot circulated the internet. Her courtroom smile became a symbol of cold calculation. But the public had only seen the beginning. Jodi Arias would take the stand herself, and she would speak for 18 days. When Jodi Arias walked into court in January 2013, the world was watching. Her trial had already generated national attention, with live broadcasts and endless headlines. She faced a charge of first-degree premeditated murder. If convicted, she could face the death penalty. The prosecution, led by Juan Martinez, presented a meticulous timeline. They argued that Jodi planned the murder in advance, stealing the gun, bringing gas cans, and setting up an alibi. They showed jurors the recovered photos, the bloody crime scene, and a damaged camera that refused to stay silent. Each image built a story of escalating rage and premeditation. Jodi's defense, led by Kirk Nurmi, argued that Travis was emotionally abusive. They said Jodi snapped after years of mistreatment and humiliation. The defense introduced journal entries, text messages, and recorded phone calls, painting Travis as controlling and sexually exploitative. But many saw a different narrative unfold. Jodi had altered her story 3 times, and her demeanor on the stand often contradicted the image of a frightened victim. Her 18 days of testimony were dramatic, filled with explicit details about their relationship, including phone sex, jealousy, and accusations of infidelity. The media dubbed the trial the courtroom soap opera. Audiences were glued to their screens. Cable news ran live coverage. Social media exploded with commentary. Prosecutors pointed to inconsistencies and cold logic. If it was self-defense, they asked, why the overkill? Why the bullet after death? Why no call for help? The jury was not swayed by claims of fear. On May 8, 2013, Jodi Arias was found guilty of first-degree murder, but during the sentencing phase, the jury deadlocked on the death penalty. A second sentencing trial in 2015 also failed to reach a unanimous verdict. The judge then handed down a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jodi showed no emotion as the verdict was read, but in interviews afterward, she still insisted on her version of events. She gave several televised interviews from jail, claiming that she wished she had never met Travis Alexander, but denying that she was a cold-blooded killer. For Travis's family, the trial brought some justice, but not peace. They spoke out publicly, expressing grief, exhaustion, and the long shadow of their brother's murder. Travis Alexander was 30 years old when he was murdered. He had dreams of success, a passion for helping others, and a deep sense of humor that his friends adored. He grew up in hardship, but worked his way into a better life. Through faith, hard work, and ambition, he inspired many. His friends and family remember his smile, his loyalty, and his belief in second chances. The cruel way his life ended only amplified the tragedy. Jodi Arias remains behind bars at Arizona State Prison Complex, Perryville. She will never walk free again. She has filed appeals, but none have succeeded. Her case remains one of the most studied examples of jealousy-fueled murder in modern America. The trial sparked debates about domestic abuse, media ethics, and the glamorization of killers in the courtroom. It also became a staple of true crime content featured in multiple documentaries, TV episodes, books, and podcast series. But for those who knew Travis, the case isn't entertainment, it's a wound that never fully healed. They continue to honor his memory through charitable work, speaking engagements, and online tributes. His family has worked to keep his story framed by his life, not just his death. Supporters of victims' rights point to this case as a reason to better recognize early signs of manipulation and emotional abuse. The public remains fascinated with the psychology behind the murder. What causes someone to go from heartbreak to homicide? For many, Jodi Arias represents a chilling blend of intelligence, beauty, and brutality. A reminder that obsession can masquerade as love and that not all danger looks dangerous. Years later, the crime still echoes in courtrooms, classrooms, and comment sections. It is a case that changed lives, laws, and legacies. But above all, it is the story of a man who wanted to be loved and a woman who could not let go. In the end, Jodi Arias didn't just kill a man. She killed the future he had built and the one he might have shared with someone else. His memory lives on. But the lesson is carved in stone. Some obsessions don't fade. They consume.
Okay, let's unpack this. Some stories just, they really grab the public's attention, don't they?
Yeah, they do, especially when they involve really complicated relationships, conflicting stories.
Exactly. And our sources for this deep dive bring us right into one of those. It centers around Travis Alexander. And the picture we get is, well, he was charismatic, driven.
Yeah, built a life from, some real hardship, committed to his faith, ambitious, optimistic, lots of energy.
But that life ended just brutally.
Yeah.
And it led to a trial that, frankly, became a media circus.
Absolutely. So what we're doing here is diving into the materials you've shared, looking at Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias, their relationship, what led up to the murder, the investigation, and that incredibly public trial.
Right. And our goal, really just to cut through all the noise. We want to pull out the key details, the timeline, the different stories that came out, all based only on the source material we have.
Just the facts from the sources.
To give you a clear view of how things unfolded and, honestly, how complex it all was.
Okay, so where does it start? The sources say September 2006, Las Vegas, a prepaid legal conference. That's where Travis and Jodi met.
And Jodi Arias is introduced as a young photographer, striking, confident.
Yeah, and apparently the connection was instant, like sparks flew right away.
That's what it sounds like. Talking daily within weeks, even though they lived in different states.
Pretty intense, fast. And by late 2006, it's serious, long-distance serious.
And there's another detail the sources mentioned: she converted to the LDS church shortly after meeting him.
Right, which is noted as, a big commitment to the faith and maybe to him too.
So things are moving fast, getting serious. But almost immediately, the sources say Travis's friends started seeing issues, red flags.
Yeah, this comes up repeatedly in the material. Emotional highs and lows, maybe some controlling behavior.
His friends actually warned him.
Quite directly, according to these accounts. They apparently used words like dangerous, unstable.
Wow. And Travis himself even said something like, "She's stalking me."
He did, to a friend. But, and this is key, he didn't cut her off. He kept her close.
That's complicated, especially considering his faith background.
Yeah.
Right? The sources mentioned the conflict that created, the relationship becoming sexual.
Definitely complicated. And that didn't stop even when they officially broke up in mid-2007.
They broke up, but not really.
Well, the sexual relationship continued, even while he was trying to date other people, trying to move on.
Okay, and this is where it seems to get, darker. She moves to Mesa, Arizona right after the breakup.
Literally minutes from his house.
She said it was for work?
That was her reason, yeah. But his friends, according to the sources, they didn't really buy it. They thought it was about him.
And her behavior then?
Yeah.
The sources described things like showing up unannounced.
Yeah, even reports of sneaking in through a doggy door. And monitoring his social media constantly.
So Travis is trying to pull away more. He's dating someone else, planning this trip to Cancun.
A trip Jodi knew about, apparently.
Which seemed significant.
Very. And her reaction, the sources say her messages became more frequent and kind of desperate, still obsessed, even as he's trying to create distance.
And then we get to early 2008, and it's chilling. He tells friends he's actually afraid she might hurt him.
Yeah, he described her as emotionally manipulative, unpredictable. He seemed genuinely scared.
But still didn't cut contact completely. Why?
That's the question, isn't it? The sources suggest maybe guilt, or maybe he was afraid of what she'd do if he pushed her away completely. It points to a really volatile situation, at least in his perception.
And meanwhile, she's doing things behind the scenes.
The sources say she was hacking his social media, reading private messages, keeping these detailed journals about everything.
So he's trying to move on, but she's just digging in deeper.
Exactly, fixated. And then planning this trip, the one to Mesa, it starts May 28th, 2008.
Okay, what happens?
She rents a car in Redding, California, packs a .25 caliber gun, a camera, gas cans, and just starts driving south.
Secretly, though. Trying to set up an alibi.
Totally secret. Told no one where she was really going. And that camera she brought, it ends up being crucial, but probably not how she intended.
And the gas cans. The route she took.
Yeah, drove over 1,000 miles, mostly overnight. Avoided toll roads, used the cans. The sources suggest this was all about not being tracked.
So she arrives in Mesa on June 4th, just days before his Cancun trip with the other woman.
Right. And she brings the camera, clothes, and that gun. The gun was reported stolen from her grandparents just days earlier.
And Travis. He lets her in.
Seems like it, yeah. At least for a while, and this is where that camera evidence comes in.
The photos.
Recovered later, time-stamped. They show them together, intimate moments in the bedroom, then the shower, all within a few hours.
But then the photos change.
Drastically. The last shots are Travis in the shower. He's looking at the camera, seems vulnerable, unaware.
And minutes later.
A photo of his body, bloody, on the bathroom floor.
The sources describe the attack as incredibly violent.
Brutal is the word used. Stabbed 27 times, throat cut ear to ear, shot in the head. Just extreme overkill.
So after the murder, what does she do?
Flees. Takes the memory card from the camera, tries to destroy the camera itself, puts it in his washing machine.
Trying to cover her tracks?
Immediately. Then she drives to Utah for that pre-planned visit with a friend.
And acts completely normal.
According to the accounts, yeah. Normal, even flirtatious. Building that alibi.
Meanwhile, Travis is silent.
For 2 days. His friends get worried, go to his house, and find that horrific scene. Blood everywhere, his body.
Police get involved. And that damaged camera.
That's the breakthrough. They find it, recover the memory card, and suddenly they have this timeline. Those photos just lay it all out.
So when they first talked to Jodi, June 9th, what did she say?
She denies everything, says she wasn't even in Arizona, hadn't seen Travis in weeks.
It's the evidence.
It piles up fast. The photos, the gas receipts, cell tower pings, surveillance video. It all puts her there. Her story doesn't hold up.
So she changes it.
Right. First version 2.0. 2 masked intruders broke in, killed Travis, but mysteriously spared her.
Which didn't make sense either, did it?
No. The sources point out, no forced entry, no other DNA, no 911 call about intruders.
So eventually...
Eventually, she admits she killed him, but she claims it was self-defense.
Self-defense after years of abuse.
That becomes her claim. Years of emotional, physical, sexual abuse. That becomes the core of her defense at trial.
And that trial, January 2013, it just exploded, didn't it?
Huge national attention, live TV coverage, constant headlines. It was everywhere.
Charged with first-degree premeditated murder. Death penalty on the table.
Exactly. And the prosecution, led by Juan Martinez, they lay out this meticulous case. They argue premeditation, the stolen gun, the gas cans, the alibi attempt.
Using the photos, the crime scene?
All of it. To show escalating rage, planning, and they really hammered on that self-defense claim. You know, if it was self-defense, why 27 stab wounds? Why cut the throat? Why shoot him? Why didn't she call for help?
And the defense, led by Kirk Nurmi. What was their angle?
Their narrative was that Travis was abusive, controlling, sexually exploitative. They used her journals, texts, recorded calls to paint him that way. They argued she basically snapped after mistreatment, maybe humiliation, a victim pushed too far.
But the public reaction and the media coverage, it was intense.
Oh, completely. Polarizing. A lot of people watching saw her changing stories, her demeanor on the stand. It didn't quite fit the image of a terrified victim for many.
She testified for 18 days.
18 days, filled with really graphic, explicit details about their sex life, the relationship. The media call it a courtroom soap opera. People were glued to it. Social media went wild.
And the verdict?
May 8, 2013, the jury found her guilty, first-degree murder.
But the death penalty part, that got complicated.
Yeah, the first jury couldn't agree on the death sentence. They deadlocked. So they had a whole second sentencing trial in 2015.
And that jury deadlocked too.
Also deadlocked on the death penalty.
The judge stepped in.
Right. The judge then handed down the sentence, life in prison, no possibility of parole.
Her reaction?
Reports say she showed basically no emotion when the verdict was read. And even afterwards, in jail interviews mentioned in the sources, she stuck to her story. Wished she'd never met him, but insisted she wasn't a cold-blooded killer.
How did Travis's family cope with all this?
The sources convey it brought a legal conclusion, but not really peace. They've talked about the grief, the exhaustion, just the long shadow it cast.
He was so young, only 30.
Yeah, and the sources really emphasize the life he had built, you know, overcoming hardship, his faith, his drive, helping people. He had dreams, a passion. Known for his humor, loyalty, believing in second chances.
That makes the way it ended even more tragic.
Absolutely. And his friends and family, they work hard to make sure he's remembered for that life. Through charity, speaking out, online tributes. They want his story framed by who he was, not just how he died.
And Jodi Arias today.
Still in prison, Arizona State Prison Complex, Perryville. Life without parole means life. Appeals haven't worked. She's not getting out.
Why does this case still resonate so much, do you think? The sources touch on this.
Well, it's seen as a really prominent example of jealousy-fueled violence in modern times. One of the most studied, really.
And it kicked off a lot of debate, didn't it? About domestic abuse, media, ethics.
Oh, huge debates. How the media covers these things, the glamorization sometimes, and of course the psychology behind it all. It's become a true crime staple docs, podcasts, you name it. But the sources remind us, for the people who actually knew Travis, it's just a wound, a deep one.
It's also using an example for recognizing warning signs.
Exactly. Victim advocates point to it, the need to see manipulation, emotional abuse, obsession for what it is, even if it doesn't look obviously dangerous at first glance.
That public fascination is powerful. Trying to understand how love, or what looks like love, can twist into that.
Yeah. For many, Jodi Arias became this symbol, like the sources say, a mix of intelligence, maybe beauty on the surface, but underneath. Something brutal, a reminder that obsession can wear a mask, that danger isn't always obvious.
The impact just keeps going. Courtrooms, classrooms, comment sections. It changed things, changed lives.
Fundamentally, the story the sources tell is about connection, maybe desperation for it. A man who wanted love, a woman who couldn't let go.
And her actions. They didn't just end his life. They ended his future, the one he was building, the one he might have had. His memory is what's left.
And maybe the starkest lesson from these materials is that some obsessions, they don't just fade, they consume.
So we've walked through the sources on this really complex story. Travis Alexander, Jodi Arias, the relationship, the crime, the trial. We've stuck strictly to the materials provided to lay out the key events and the different perspectives presented.
And you see how this case, especially with the conflicting stories about abuse and motive, just blew up in the media. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about us as people consuming this information.
What's our role?
Yeah. When you have these high-profile cases, especially with serious allegations like abuse flying around, what's our responsibility in trying to sort through the narratives? How do we separate the core facts, the context from the dramatic story the headlines are screaming? Something to consider.
Definitely something to consider. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.